This is Matthew Clark, representative of the United Earth Alliance. We strongly advise the Galactic Empire to reconsider its approach. Earth is not your enemy, but if you cross into our territory, we will respond. This is your only warning. The room burst into laughter as the Rick slammed a clawed hand onto the control panel. Audacity, he roared, his tail flicking in irritation. They think they can frighten the Empire with empty words. One of his officers, a nervous-looking lieutenant with pale blue scales, cleared his throat. Admiral, perhaps their confidence stems from something we haven't accounted for. Their communication systems are remarkably advanced for a pre-hyperdrive civilization. Thurick shot him a glare so fierce it could have melted steel. Lieutenant Varick, are you suggesting we fear these primitives? They can barely scratch the surface of their own moon, let alone pose a threat to us. Meanwhile, deep within Earth's most secure military base, Lieutenant Commander Ryan Decker stared at the same holographic transmission. The Galactic fleet was visible on his monitor, hundreds of ships forming an ominous wall of firepower. His hands rested on the sleek console as his piercing blue eyes scanned the data. Well, Ryan muttered, a sardonic grin tugging at the corner of his mouth. They certainly brought the whole party, didn't they? Should I bring out the snacks, sir? Came a voice behind him. Ryan turned to see Chief Engineer Jonah Hayes leaning against the doorway, a steaming mug of coffee in one hand and a wrench in the other. Jonah, perpetually rumpled and half sarcastic, was the kind of genius who could build a starship engine out of a toaster and duct tape. Funny, Ryan said, rolling his eyes. But unless you figured out how to weaponize caffeine, I need you at your station. The fleet's closing in. Jonah sipped his coffee dramatically. Relax, Commander. I'm sure they're here for a friendly game of interstellar chess. He paused, his tone dropping to something more serious. Or maybe they just don't believe you when you tell them Earth isn't an easy target. Ryan turned back to the monitor, his jaw tightening. They'll believe it soon enough. In the control room, the tension was evident. Officers moved quickly between stations, the hum of advanced AI systems filling the air. At the heart of it all was Sentinel, Earth's quantum supercomputer, its holographic interface flickering like a digital ghost. Commander Decker, Sentinel said in its calm, precise voice, the enemy fleet will breach the outer defense perimeter in 15 minutes. Would you like me to initiate Phase 1? Ryan shook his head. Not yet. Let's see how far they're willing to go. Sentinel paused, as if calculating probabilities. Your caution is noted, Commander. However, statistical analysis suggests a 97% likelihood that the Galactic Empire will not heed the warning. Yeah, well, there's always that 3% chance they grow a conscience, Ryan muttered. Unlikely, Sentinel replied without missing a beat. Matthew Clark's voice crackled through the comm system. Ryan, any movement? Nothing yet, Ryan said, glancing at the monitor. They're still playing chicken, but they're getting close. On the other end, Matthew chuckled. Typical. They've probably got some overblown admiral pacing around, calling us monkeys. Reptiles don't pace, Jonah chimed in as he walked past. They skitter. Big difference. The humor was short-lived as a warning alarm blared through the room. Ryan's expression hardened as Sentinel spoke again. Enemy fleet has crossed the outer boundary. They are on a direct course for Earth. Recommend immediate activation of defense systems. Ryan exhaled slowly, his mind racing. They've made their choice, he said. Sentinel, activate Phase 1, but keep the big guns on standby. Let's not show all our cards just yet. As you command, Sentinel replied. Back aboard the Eternal Dominion. Grand Admiral Durick's watched with glee as the fleet advanced unchallenged. See, he said, gesturing to his officers. These humans are nothing but cowards. They don't even have the nerve to defend themselves. The fleet pushed deeper into Earth's territory, their sensors scanning for any signs of resistance. Suddenly, a pulse rippled through space, a subtle but calculated move that disrupted their communications for a fraction of a second. Admiral, "We've encountered a localized disturbance," Lieutenant Varick reported, his voice edged with unease. "Insignificant," Varick snapped. "Continue the advance." But the pulse wasn't insignificant. Back on Earth, Ryan watched as the disruption caused minor chaos within the enemy fleet. It wasn't an attack. It was a message, one they couldn't ignore. "Jonah," Ryan said, "how's the next phase coming along?" Jonah grinned as he tapped on his tablet. "Oh, it's ready. Just waiting for the green light. I've even added a little extra flair, just for fun." "Define flair," Ryan said, raising an eyebrow. "You'll see." The Eternal Dominion shuddered slightly as another pulse hit, this one stronger than the last. Varick frowned, his confidence wavering. "What is the meaning of this?" "Admiral, it appears to be a warning," Varick said hesitantly. On the screen, a new transmission appeared. It was Matthew Clark again, his expression unchanging. "This is your last chance. Turn back now, or we will respond. The choice is yours." Therick's sneer returned as he slammed his fist on the console. "Enough of this posturing. Full speed ahead. I will burn their pathetic planet to ash." On Earth, Ryan watched the fleet's acceleration with a grim smile. He turned to Jonah. "Looks like they've made their decision." "Yeah," Jonah said, finishing his coffee and tossing the mug into a bin. "And it's the wrong one." As the Galactic fleet advanced, Earth's defenses hummed to life, a silent but deadly storm waiting to be unleashed. Ryan glanced at the monitor one last time, his resolve unshaken. "Let's give them something to remember. Deploy the forward assault units," he ordered, his voice cutting through the tension. "Let's remind these humans what true power looks like." Lieutenant Varick hesitated for a fraction of a second before nodding. "Yes, Admiral," he replied, his hands moving swiftly over his console. Small fighter squadrons detached from the larger warships, their sleek forms glinting as they streaked toward Earth's defensive perimeter. Back in Earth's control center, the atmosphere was electric. Ryan Decker stood in the center of the chaos, his voice calm but firm as he issued orders. Around him, officers scrambled to their stations, coordinating the planetary defenses. The holographic projection of Earth's orbit showed the incoming fighters like a swarm of angry hornets. "Sentinel," Ryan called out, his tone sharp. "Status on Phase 2? The AI's smooth, emotionless voice responded immediately. "Phase 2 is operational, Commander." "Shall I deploy the automated orbital turrets?" Ryan considered it for a moment before nodding. "Do it. Let's see how they handle our first line of defense." The room fell silent as the image of Earth's orbit shifted. A series of small, spherical turrets concealed among the planet's satellites came to life, their targeting systems locking onto the incoming fighters. Without a single sound, they fired. Bright bursts of plasma lit up the void of space as the turrets tore through the enemy squadrons. The precision was surgical, each shot eliminating a target with ruthless efficiency. On board the Eternal Dominion, Therick's sneer faltered as he watched his fighters disintegrate in the blink of an eye. "What is this?" he growled, his tail lashing in frustration. "They've barely left their planet's atmosphere. How are they capable of this level of precision?" "Admiral," Varick began cautiously, "it appears their technology is more advanced than we anticipated. These turrets are utilizing a targeting algorithm far beyond anything we've seen." Therick's glare was venomous. "Then overwhelm them. I want every warship to focus fire on those turrets. Crush them." As the larger ships moved into position, Earth's control room erupted with activity. "They're targeting the turrets, Commander," Jonah Hayes reported, his voice carrying a hint of excitement. "We've got about 2 minutes before they're overwhelmed." Ryan smirked. 2 minutes is all we need. Are the decoys ready?" Jonah gave him a thumbs up. "Locked and loaded. This is going to be fun." On Ryan's command, several uninhabited satellites powered up, projecting holographic duplicates of Earth's defensive systems. To the Galactic fleet's sensors, it looked like an entire second wave of turrets had appeared out of nowhere. The alien warships split their fire, their coordination faltering as they tried to prioritize targets. Thurix slammed his fist against his console. "What is happening?" "They're using countermeasures," Admiral Varick said, his voice strained. "Our sensors can't distinguish the real targets from the fakes." Therix's frustration boiled over, and he turned to his weapons officer. "Launch the planetary bombardment missiles. I don't care if we hit decoys. Destroy everything." The control room on Earth buzzed with warnings as Sentinel alerted them to the incoming threat. Ryan's jaw tightened as he studied the data. "Here we go," he muttered. "Bombardment missiles incoming," Sentinel announced. "Impact in 60 seconds. Jonah leaned over his console, his fingers flying across the keys. "I've got a little surprise for those missiles," he said, grinning. Ryan glanced at him. "Care to share?" Jonah shrugged. "Let's just say they're going to have a hard time finding their way." As the missiles approached, a signal burst from Earth's defense systems, scrambling their guidance systems. One by one, the missiles veered off course, their trajectories spiraling out of control. Some exploded harmlessly in space, while others collided with debris fields left over from old orbital projects. Thurix stared at the carnage on his display, his confidence cracking for the first time. "They're toying with us," he muttered, his voice low and dangerous. "Admiral," Varick said hesitantly, "if I may suggest, perhaps we should reconsider our approach. Their defenses are more formidable than expected." Therix's eyes narrowed. "Reconsider? Do you know what failure looks like in the Empire, Lieutenant?" Varick stiffened, his scales paling. "I do, sir." "Then do not suggest retreat again," Thurix snapped. "We will not falter before a planet of primitives." Back on Earth, Ryan watched the data streams with a mixture of satisfaction and dread. The initial skirmish had gone in their favor, but he knew the Empire wouldn't give up so easily. "What's their next move, Sentinel?" he asked. The AI paused for a moment before replying. "Analysis suggests a 78% probability they will deploy ground forces in an attempt to bypass orbital defenses." "Great," Ryan muttered. "Nothing like welcoming uninvited guests." Jonah looked up from his console. "Think they'll knock first, or should I prepare the welcome mat?" Ryan smirked despite himself. "Prepare the mat, but keep the door locked." The room fell silent again as the tension mounted. On the monitor, the Galactic fleet began to reorganize, their ships clustering into a tighter formation. It was a clear sign they were preparing for something big. "Commander," Sentinel said, new energy signatures detected. "It appears they are preparing to launch a coordinated planetary assault." Ryan nodded grimly. "Time to up the stakes. Jonah, bring the Phase 3 defenses online. Let's give them a taste of what Earth can really do." Jonah grinned. "With pleasure." As Earth systems powered up, a new wave of holographic projections appeared, this time mimicking entire squadrons of fighter ships. The Galactic fleet hesitated, their sensors flooded with conflicting data. Therix's claws dug into his console as he watched the chaos unfold. "They think they can outsmart me," he snarled. "I'll show them what happens when you defy the Empire." He turned to his crew, his voice like steel. "Prepare the flagship's main cannon. If they want to fight, we'll give them one they'll never forget." Back in the control room, Ryan's expression darkened as he saw the massive energy build up in the Eternal Dominion. "They're charging their big gun," he said, his voice low. Jonah glanced at him. "How big are we talking?" "Big enough to turn this base into a crater," Ryan replied. Jonah whistled. "Well, that's just rude." "Sentinel," Ryan said, his tone deadly serious. "Ready the countermeasures. We're not letting them fire that thing." "Understood, Commander," Sentinel replied. As the Galactic fleet prepared to unleash its might, Earth's defenders braced for the next round. The battle was far from over, and the stakes had never been higher. Ryan's resolve hardened as he watched the Eternal Dominion on the monitor. "They're going to learn," he said quietly, more to himself than anyone else. "They're going to learn what happens when you underestimate humanity." The silence in the control room was almost unbearable as the energy buildup aboard the Eternal Dominion reached critical levels. Ryan Decker's sharp eyes remained locked on the monitor, his mind racing through the possibilities. The Galactic Empire's flagship was preparing to unleash a weapon capable of devastating Earth in a single blow. He had seconds to act. "Jonah," Ryan called out, his voice steady but urgent. "Tell me the countermeasures are ready." Jonah Hayes, crouched over his console with an intensity rarely seen in his usually laid-back demeanor, gave a thumbs up without looking back. "Almost there. Just need a few more seconds. You know, the usual impossible deadlines." "We don't have a few seconds," Ryan snapped. "That thing fires and we're toast." Jonah grinned, his fingers flying over the holographic keyboard. "Relax, Commander. I've got this." "Probably." Ryan didn't respond. His attention shifted to the holographic feed of the Eternal Dominion, the flagship's main cannon. A monstrous construct of glowing alien alloys began to pulse with a menacing light. It was clear the weapon was almost fully charged. His gut told him they were out of time. "Sentinel," Ryan barked. "Status on Phase 3 deployment." The AI's voice was calm, as if the fate of humanity wasn't hanging in the balance. "Phase 3 systems are operational. Countermeasure drones are prepped and awaiting launch." "Then launch them," Ryan ordered. Outside, a swarm of tiny, insect-like drones shot from concealed orbital silos. Each one was a masterpiece of human ingenuity, autonomous, agile, and armed with quantum disruptors capable of short-circuiting even the most advanced systems. The drones zipped toward the Eternal Dominion, their movements chaotic and unpredictable, like a school of fish evading a predator. On the flagship's command deck, Grand Admiral Dirks glared at the display. "What now?" He growled as red blips flooded the holographic projection of his ship. "Admiral, unidentified projectiles inbound," one of his officers reported, his voice shaking. "They're small but moving too fast for our turrets to track." "Then disable them," Dirks roared, his claws digging into the armrest of his command chair. "Use the point defense systems." But it was already too late. The drones swarmed the Eternal Dominion, attaching themselves to critical systems and releasing bursts of disruptive energy. Lights flickered, control panels sparked, and the hum of the main cannon dropped to a sickly whine. Dirks shot to his feet, his tail lashing in fury. "What is happening?" "Admiral," the officer stammered, "the cannon is offline. They've neutralized it." Ryan allowed himself a small smile as the feed confirmed the cannon's failure. "Nice work, Jonah." Jonah leaned back in his chair, letting out a dramatic sigh of relief. "And they said I couldn't make miracles happen before my second cup of coffee." Ryan turned to the team gathered in the control room. "That's one crisis averted. But this fight is far from over. They still have the numbers, and we can't rely on tricks alone. We need to hit them hard while they're reeling." Matthew Clark's voice crackled through the comms. "Well, Commander, it sounds like the perfect time to give them a taste of our new toy." Ryan hesitated, his mind flashing to the classified files on the Erasure Protocol. It was humanity's ultimate weapon, a last resort designed to end wars before they began. But its power came with risks Ryan wasn't sure he was ready to take. "Commander," Sentinel interjected, "analysis indicates a 92% probability that deploying the Erasure Protocol now would incapacitate the enemy fleet before they can regroup. And the other 8%?" Ryan asked. "An uncontrollable cascade event resulting in collateral damage," Sentinel replied matter-of-factly. Jonah glanced over, his usual humor tempered by the weight of the moment. 8%'s not bad, considering. I mean, if we're playing the odds, I'd take it over the 100% chance of them wiping us out. Ryan clenched his jaw. "Sentinel, initiate Erasure Protocol, but keep it contained. I don't want this turning into another Tunguska." "Understood, Commander," Sentinel said. The room fell silent as the Erasure Protocol was activated. High above Earth, a cluster of satellites aligned themselves in a perfect grid, their surfaces gleaming as they absorb energy from the planet's orbital power stations. At the center of the formation, a single satellite, larger than the rest, began to glow. On board the Eternal Dominion, chaos reigned as the sensors detected the buildup. "Admiral," Varric shouted, "unprecedented energy signatures detected in Earth orbit. It's beyond anything we've ever encountered." Therix's sneer returned, though it was tinged with unease. "Another trick. Prepare the fleet for full assault. Overwhelm them before they can deploy whatever pathetic weapon they've cobbled together." But it wasn't a trick. The Erasure Protocol unleashed a wave of energy unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. It wasn't an explosion or a beam. It was a ripple, silent and invisible, that spread through space at the speed of light. Ships caught in its wake didn't explode or crumble. They simply stopped. Lights went out, engines stalled, and weapons froze mid-charge. Ryan watched the monitor as the alien fleet was immobilized. The Eternal Dominion hung motionless, its massive form now nothing more than a lifeless husk. "Status?" he asked. Sentinel's voice carried a note of satisfaction. "Enemy fleet neutralized." No signs of further activity. Jonah let out a low whistle. "Okay, that was intense. Remind me to never get on your bad side, Commander." Ryan didn't smile. His eyes were fixed on the screen, where the remnants of the fleet drifted helplessly. "This isn't over," he said quietly. "Therix isn't the type to accept defeat. He'll come back, and when he does, we need to be ready." As if on cue, a single transmission crackled through the comms. It was Therix, his voice low and venomous. "This isn't over, humans. You may have won the battle, but the Empire does not forgive or forget." Ryan leaned forward, his expression hard. "Then consider this your first lesson in humility. The next time you come for us, you won't even have the chance to regret it." The transmission cut off, and for a moment, the control room was silent. Then Jonah broke it with a dry laugh. "Well, I think it's safe to say they're not sending us a fruit basket anytime soon." Despite the tension, a few chuckles rippled through the room. Ryan allowed himself a small smile before straightening. "Good work, everyone. But this isn't the end. Start prepping for the next wave. If Therix wants to come back, we'll be waiting." The team dispersed, each member returning to their station. Ryan lingered for a moment, staring at the now quiet battlefield. The Erasure Protocol had worked, but the cost weighed heavily on him. The fight wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about proving humanity's place in the galaxy, and they weren't going to back down. The control room was eerily quiet, the kind of silence that bore the weight of something monumental. Ryan Decker stood at the center, his gaze locked on the holographic display of Earth's orbit. The alien fleet was still adrift, immobilized by the Erasure Protocol. Yet, he felt no relief. There was no victory in this pause, only the faint hum of impending retaliation. The Galactic Empire wasn't the type to accept defeat, and Grand Admiral Therix had proven himself to be as stubborn as he was ruthless. "Sentinel," Ryan said, his voice cutting through the stillness. "Status on the Eternal Dominion." The AI responded immediately, its calm, precise tone filling the room. "Flagship remains operational, Commander. Main systems are still offline, but auxiliary power has been restored. Admiral Therix's command deck is shielded from further disruptions." Ryan frowned. Of course Therix would have backup systems. He wouldn't stay neutralized for long. What about the rest of the fleet? "Most ships remain incapacitated," Sentinel replied. "However, a small number of vessels are showing signs of reactivation. Enemy forces are attempting to re-establish control." Ryan exhaled slowly, his mind racing. They didn't have much time. If Therix regained control of the flagship, it would only be a matter of minutes before the Empire rallied its forces. Earth couldn't survive a second onslaught. "Jonah," Ryan called, his tone sharper than usual. "What's the status of the gravitational weapon?" Jonah Hayes, who had been hunched over a nearby console, straightened up and turned with a wry grin. "Fully charged and ready to go, Commander. But I should probably remind you that using it this close to Earth is a bad idea. Like, Turn the planet into Swiss cheese, kinda bad. Ryan gave him a hard look. Noted. We're not using it unless we have no other choice. Fair enough, Jonah replied, leaning back into his chair. Just let me know when you want to roll the dice. The comms crackled to life, breaking the tension. It was Matthew Clark, his voice calm, but with an edge of urgency. Ryan, I'm picking up chatter from the Empire's comms. The Urix is calling for reinforcements. If we're going to make a move, it has to be now. Ryan didn't respond immediately. His eyes stayed fixed on the holographic display, where the Eternal Dominion loomed like a wounded predator. He could feel the weight of every decision pressing down on him, the lives of billions hanging in the balance. Finally, he turned to Sentinel. Can we disable the flagship completely? Unlikely, Sentinel said. The flagship's core systems are heavily shielded. However, a direct assault on its main reactor could trigger a cascade failure. Ryan nodded, the pieces falling into place. Then we take the fight to them. The room stiffened. Jonah turned, his usual smirk fading. You're not seriously suggesting we board the Eternal Dominion, are you? That's exactly what I'm suggesting, Ryan said. If we don't neutralize that ship, everything we've done so far won't matter. The Urix will rebuild, and this time he won't underestimate us. Jonah let out a low whistle. Well, when you put it that way, how can I say no? Ryan ignored the sarcasm and turned to the rest of the team. Ethan Grayson's squad is already prepped for insertion. They'll lead the assault on the reactor. Jonah, you're coming with me. We're going to disable their communications and make sure they can't call for help. Jonah blinked. Wait, I'm sorry, what now? Since when am I part of your suicidal boarding party plan? Since you're the only one who knows how to hack into their systems, Ryan replied, his tone leaving no room for argument. Jonah sighed, grabbing his toolkit. Fine, but if I die, I'm haunting you. Minutes later, the boarding party launched from Earth's orbit in a sleek, stealth-class transport. The tension in the cabin was palpable, the hum of the engines the only sound. Ryan sat across from Ethan Grayson, the leader of the assault team. Grayson's expression was calm, but his eyes betrayed a fierce determination. Here's the plan, Ryan said, addressing the group. Grayson, your team will take the main reactor. Jonah and I will handle the communications hub. Once the reactor is down, we'll rendezvous at the extraction point. Keep it quick and clean. Grayson nodded. Understood. And Commander, good luck. The transport docked with the Eternal Dominion under the cover of its failing systems. The team moved quickly, their weapons at the ready as they infiltrated the flagship's labyrinthine corridors. The air was thick with tension, every shadow a potential threat. Ryan led the way, his rifle steady in his hands. Jonah followed close behind, his usual humor muted by the gravity of the situation. You know, Jonah whispered, I've always wanted to see the inside of an alien flagship. Just not like this. Focus, Jonah, Ryan muttered. We're almost there. The communications hub was heavily guarded, but Grayson's team had drawn most of the enemy forces toward the reactor. Ryan and Jonah made quick work of the remaining guards, their training kicking in as they moved with precision and efficiency. Inside the hub, Jonah got to work on the main console, his fingers flying over the alien interface. This is some seriously advanced tech, he muttered. But nothing I can't handle. Ryan kept watch, his eyes scanning the room for any signs of movement. How long? Couple of minutes, Jonah replied. Maybe less, if you stop distracting me. The minutes felt like hours, but finally, Jonah let out a triumphant laugh. Got it. Communications are down. The Urix isn't calling for backup anytime soon. Ryan nodded. Good. Let's move. They rendezvoused with Grayson's team, just as the first wave of reinforcements arrived. The firefight was brutal, the corridors of the Eternal Dominion echoing with the sound of weapons fire. Grayson's men fought valiantly, their determination unwavering even as the odds stacked against them. Grayson's status. Ryan shouted over the comms. "Charges are set," Grayson replied, his voice tight. "But we're pinned down near the reactor. We need an exit now." Ryan's mind raced. They couldn't risk the entire team being trapped. "Sentinel," he barked, "reroute power to the flagship's hangar bay. Create a distraction." "Understood, Commander," Sentinel replied. The lights flickered, and a deafening alarm filled the ship as the hangar bay doors opened, venting several alien fighters into the vacuum of space. The distraction was enough. Grayson's team fought their way back, the charges detonating behind them in a thunderous explosion. The team regrouped at the transport, battered but alive. As the ship pulled away, the Eternal Dominion shuddered, flames consuming its core. Ryan watched from the viewport, his expression grim. "That's one less problem," Jonas said, slumping into his seat. "So, does this mean we've officially won?" Ryan didn't answer immediately. His eyes remained on the burning flagship, the weight of the battle still heavy on his shoulders. "We've won this fight," he said finally. "But the war isn't over." The transport slipped back into Earth orbit, the team silent but resolute. Humanity had struck back, proving they were no longer prey to be hunted. They were predators now, and the galaxy would never forget it.